Alrighty, y'all. Thank y'all for checking out the video today. We got some delicious baby back ribs here from Aldi. Got them on a really good price, $6 for an entire rack. And honestly, I gotta say, they don't look too bad. Not too fatty, but also looking really meaty, about as meaty as a baby back rib can get. And we're gonna keep it super simple today with the style of barbecue. We're just going with a little Killer Hogs, the barbecue rub. Super simple, standard barbecue. And we're gonna finish it off with a South Carolina staple, a little Sticky Fingers barbecue sauce. This one is the sweet and smooth Kentucky bourbon barbecue sauce. That's literally all we're gonna do, except for a little bit of butter, a little bit of brown sugar. It's gonna be some dang good ribs, and we're trying out the Oklahoma Joe Bronco barrel smoker for the very first time. Let's go ahead and pop these ribs open and start seasoning them up with a little bit of Killer Hogs. We ain't gonna need this sauce until the very end when it's all nice and good to go. All right, so we've pulled this membrane off the back of the ribs, and all that's gonna do for us is open this backside to where that's just pure meat. There's no kind of sack that kind of holds the gut, still holding the back of those ribs together. It's really just gonna make it tender and allow for some disintegration. We're gonna take some of this Killer Hogs though, and we're just gonna go with a somewhat light coating, about a medium coating, I'd say, actually. And we're just gonna tap it in there to make sure it sits good. Super simple rib recipe, guys. This is called the one rub, one sauce rib recipe. Just your standard, good, old-fashioned barbecue ribs. Don't be afraid to use a little extra seasoning. You are not going to hurt the ribs. Baby back ribs are not a delicate meat. They can take a little bit of seasoning. Make sure you get your fronts too. You really want to make sure you get all sides of these baby backs. You want them to taste good. So now we've got it rubbed up on the backside, and I'm going to share a little barbecue secret with you here. Instead of immediately flipping it over to the front side and seasoning the front, we're going to let this sit for about 5 to 10 minutes. I'm going to go check the smoker temps while we do that. But what it's going to do is the salts within that rub are going to start to pull that moisture out, and they're really gonna set in before you flip it over and all the rub falls off. Then we'll flip it over, do the same thing, let it sit for about 10 minutes, and only then will they go on the smoker. And we're doing a little bit of a funny thing with the smoker today, but if you got a pit smoker yourself, you can do it, and you probably already know the trick. But first, let's let this sit for just a couple of minutes to let those salts work. Once again, let it sit about 5 minutes. Smoker is almost up to temp. And then we're gonna be ready to roll. So this is my brand new Oklahoma Joe Bronco barrel smoker, and this thing is an absolute beast. And for the money, you cannot get a better smoker in my opinion. It's sitting about 250, 275. I try and keep it about 275. It likes to run about 250, so we kind of bounce between those two temperatures. But really and truly, this thing works great. And for classic barbecue taste, it's awesome. And all we're gonna do is use the old hanging method. So we're gonna pop it open here real quick. Try and keep our stuff good. So we've just hooked these ribs onto the bone, hang it on it like that. That's gonna give us that classic barbecue taste when it comes to those hot juices flowing down deep into those coals. It's gonna look real good. Let's shut that lid so we don't lose too much temperature. So we lost a little bit of temperature in the process of putting the ribs onto the smoker. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna leave the vent almost all the way open until we reach that 275 mark once again. Then we're gonna check it down to about 2 on the settings, which is about a quarter open on the pipe. And that is going to just check that back and keep it at that perfect 275. Also, I'm going off of a time limit. This isn't gonna make the ribs tender, this first step. The hanging method's not gonna make them tender. What I'm going for is a dark brown mahogany color and that smoky taste. After that, we're gonna wrap them up, and that's when we're gonna get our tender on. Till then though, every 45 minutes or so, I'm gonna come out here and throw a fresh piece of mild cherry wood out here, and it's gonna be really good ribs working on in here. Ribs have been on now for just shy of 2.5 hours. It's wanting to run a little bit hot, so we're gonna go ahead and pull these bad boys off of this hanging setup here. Oh, don't they look good. We're gonna get them on some tinfoil real quick. All right, so now that I've burned the crap out of my fingers because I touched the heat probe after it had been in the grill for just a second, we're gonna take a little bit of margarine here. This is a great thing. You don't have to use butter. Butter's expensive. Margarine will do the trick just fine. So we're gonna throw a couple of little dollops of margarine here on this tinfoil, like so. We're gonna try and snug it up against that rib because we don't have a lot of room to work with, so we're just gonna throw 3 good old pats of margarine down there. Let's take a little bit of brown sugar. Look at that. Does not have to be fancy, y'all. A little bit of brown sugar is really just gonna help that sit in. And I know I said we're going 1 sauce, 1 rub ribs, but is hot honey really a sauce? I love to add this to any kind of ribs that I'm cooking. You don't need a ton of it. It'll get the job done in little amounts. That's just gonna help with that sugar. Ooh, it's gonna be good. Now we're gonna take the meat side of these ribs and slap them down on there. Oh yeah, we're gonna look. There's no real stalagmites coming out of that, but we got the bone starting to pull away. That's gonna be real good. Now I'm gonna keep it real simple on the backside. I'm just gonna add a little bit of brown sugar, a little bit of our honey, just to make it right. We're not gonna add any of that butter. Now we're just gonna wrap it up and we're gonna throw it back on the smoker for about 1 hour, and that's just gonna let that butter and those juices really soak in and re-tenderize that meat. After that, we're gonna pull it off, glaze it, and they're gonna be ready to go. But first, 1 hour in the smoker with some tin foil. All right, so they've been tin-foiled now for about an hour. What we're gonna do here is we're gonna move this tin foil just out of the way, and we're gonna look for some disintegration on the back of the ribs. And boys, we are seeing it. They look good enough to eat right now. Let's go ahead and get a probe in them and see what temperature they are. We're looking for around that 200, 202 mark. So it looks like we're sitting right about 205, just a hair over the mark we were going for, but you know what? That's okay. That just means they're gonna be a hair more tender. And you know what? That never hurt my feelings. So let's get our glove back on here. We gotta be real careful because that's some real hot juice filled up in these things. We're just gonna kind of loosely fold it up. They are gonna be really tender at this point. So we gotta be really careful when we transfer them over here because they will fall apart if we're not careful. Ribs coming off here, and y'all, when I talk about disintegration, what I'm talking about is that little bit of bone on the backside that you're starting to see pull through. That's what we're looking for when we look at disintegration. Now what we're gonna do is glaze these ribs, and we're gonna throw them back on the smoker for about 15 minutes. Now the glaze that I'm using is off of that Kentucky bourbon barbecue sauce that we had at the beginning of the video, and I took a little bit of apple cider vinegar just to thin it up a little bit, but then also a pinch of brown sugar as to not let that acidity shine through. So we're gonna get our grill brush here, and we're just gonna paint that sucker on. Oh, it's gonna be good, y'all. Look at this. This might be the best rack of ribs I've ever made. Now we're just gonna flip them over like this. Same process. Just a little bit of sauce. Just like that. And y'all, if you got a little sauce left over, not a big deal. If you got somebody in your family that likes a little extra saucy rib, that's not really my thing, but if you got somebody that likes it, by Jove, let them have it, throw it back on there. All right, last step, y'all. We just got ourselves a small pan. We threw that tin foil away. We're done with it. All we're gonna do now is leave those ribs on a pan. I don't really wanna make the smoker that messy. We're just gonna leave them on here for, like I said, about 15 minutes. Let that glaze harden up onto it. We got a little extra if you want a saucy rib. If not, boom, 15 minutes, ready to cut into, gonna be good. 15 minutes, oh, that looks perfect. That sauce, just a little tacky, but it's not really coming off that bad on my fingers. That is the perfect rib. We're just gonna shut these vents off to make sure that that smoker dies down a little bit, and let's go let them rest for about 10 to 15 minutes. Let those juices solid also so it won't burn the crap out of you. And then we're gonna cut into them, and everybody in the family is gonna get a taste test of these ribs. Ribs have cooled just a little bit. They are still smoking hot though, so I gotta be really careful. The way that I'm gonna cut them is just flip them over, find where these bones are, and I'm just gonna cut 2 bone pieces. Ooh, son, look at that. That's a pretty good looking rib if I've ever seen one. I'm gonna pull one right here from the middle. Let's just go in. Look at that smoke ring. We got the smoke ring, the pink action there, perfectly done though. Let's take a bite. That's the best rack of ribs I've ever made. Right? That is a good rack of ribs. Y'all, this was the one sauce one rub recipe. Highly recommend. Hanging rib style. Pick you one of those smokers up. They are good for the money. This thing's good. Everybody's got to get a taste now. But y'all, look at the bark. That's good ribs. I'll see y'all next time. I don't know what more you want from me today. It's gonna hurt editing this video because these things don't exist anymore. See y'all later.